Mitofu. There's quite a mixture of practitioners in here. Some of you are new and some of you have been practicing for a while. I'll do my best to present the Dharma, the teachings, in a way that is equally interesting and helpful to all of you. To present the Dharma is something very interesting because it's something that I really can't teach you. The only thing I can do is just show you the way, and then you have to do it on your own. But what I'm trying to do is to present as clear as possible the path in which we go, even though in Chan we say there is no path, and you go, what? So welcome to Chan and what appears to be contradictions, where we say that we follow a path, but there's no path. So how does that make any sense? It only makes sense when we begin to utilize our mind. Now, mind is something very interesting because it isn't what you believe it to be. It isn't consciousness. Consciousness is a manifestation that appears within mind, but it is not your mind. If it was consciousness, your consciousness itself would be able to manifest whatever you wanted. For instance, if you put into your mind that you wanted to fly, then you could fly. But if you put it in your mind and you see yourself flying and using your imagination that you're flying, that's mind, but that's only a manifestation in mind. It's not your true mind. That which enabled you to have an image of yourself flying is mind. Now, by now you're probably saying, what the heck? This is kind of very interesting that I'm doing, but what I'm doing is kind of starting from the very beginning and taking the floor away. So you're here, you're on your cushion, and Chan just really takes the floor away and says, at this point in time, this is not as real as you think it is. We investigate mind, and sometimes we talk about contemplating mind. What that means is that we bring the mind to the forefront. We begin to look at that rather than consciousness or illusions. The illusions in mind are essentially everything that moves. So if you look around this room, this whole room is an illusion. It's not easy for us to look at things in this way. But if we come back in 100 years, would this illusion still be here? It's temporary. And if we come back in 100 years, maybe you would be something other than a human at that time. So we look at things as they are, and we begin to see them. And the sutras are always talking about uncalculable numbers. Oftentimes when I come across a monk or a nun, I give them a fossil and hand it to them and say that this was a fossil of, let's say, a bug from 600 million years ago. 600 million years ago. That's a pretty long time. It's not a number that we can calculate in our mind or count. We run out of toes and fingers pretty fast doing that. It's not going to happen. But it enables us to begin to see how vast mind is, because all of that occurred in mind, not in your mind, not in your flesh and blood, because your flesh and blood has a very short shelf life relative to mine, which doesn't have a shelf life. But when we look at things, we have to look at it in what we call the right view. Right view is seeing things as they are. And it's a different type of seeing. It is that the mind views mind with truth, the truth of things. It's not easy for us to do that because we have to suspend our belief that everything that we say, think, feel is not real. But we really do not understand that whatever appears is a dream or a phantom, an illusion. This is Chan, that we begin to contemplate and see these things. Now, some of you are really beginners. Some of you may not even have a method yet. But it's okay, you can listen to this. And in some ways, it may produce some confusion, but Chan is very good at producing confusion intentionally. Its confusion is so that you do not trust your five senses. And you go, oh no, I gotta trust my five senses. No, I wouldn't take poison. You wouldn't? No. If I offered you a donut, would you take it? A jelly donut maybe, or something that's there, would you take it? No. It's very interesting because of what we do. We live in a world that is literally created by ignorance. There's a sutra called the Queen Srimala Devi's Lion's Roar Sutra that talks about nescient entrenchment. And nescient entrenchment is this fundamental ignorance that we believe that we exist apart from everything else, and that we view the world through our eyes, and therefore that we exist. And but it really isn't this way. The truth is that this world is temporary. And if you think about it, have you seen a dinosaur around? No, they were here before you, for millions of years before you. And how long have we been here as a relative culture? Maybe 60,000 years, maybe 90,000 years. Not even a tenth of a million years. But yet we think that everything here was created by us in some way, or by a divinity. And then what happened before that? The other 599 million years, was that just here before spontaneously appearing? We use our truth to look at things. When you sit on your cushion, you're not there just trying to stop the baby from crying. You've run into me. Some of you are experienced practitioners, some of you are new, but you have a good fortune to run into me. Because maybe if you think, you're not really sure what I'm saying, by the end of this retreat, you're going to be scratching your head and saying, what if he's right? What about this? And looking into this. This is Chan. Chan doesn't sit here and say, okay, I'm going to tell you the meaning of life. That's useless. But if I told you where to look for the truth, that's pretty good. And you can take that and you can comparison shop with wherever you go. and you want to go in comparison shop to an atheist or paganism, or, a Presbyterian, whatever it is, comparison shop and see what's there. But always look for the truth. Always look for that. That's very important. The truth is that there is something that is called the Buddha nature. It is the intrinsic nature of all sentient beings. All sentient beings are beings that arise and have some form of sentience, some form of thinking. All of them possess this Buddha nature. Master Ling Chi, one of the ancient Chan masters, said, "Do you want to see the Buddhas? Do you want to see the Buddhas?" And the people said, "Yeah, we want to see it." They were thinking he's magically going to conjure up some Buddhas in front of them, maybe a guy with a fat belly or somebody sitting serenely or whatever. And he said, "They're not other than you. Those who are listening to me at this moment, standing, well, you see, we let you sit. At that time, they made me stand. Standing before me, it's not other than you." And so you have to look at things in this way, not other than me, not your body, because your body, as you get older, it has a shelf life of an avocado or a banana. Right now, you may be like a nice, like firm peach or something, but come back in a few years and there's some of these saggy peaches that are in here already. But in any case, it's not that. It is the mind, this mind that you have. It has never been born. Never been born. It's always been there. And there is a saying in Chan saying, to know all of the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, just like Master Ling Chi was saying. He says, perceive that all Dharma, Dhatu nature, all phenomena is created by the mind. This is a big clue, a major, major clue, because we see things and we say, oh, everything around us is created by the mind, not by us as individuals, but in accordance with causes and conditions. And these causes and conditions never fail. Everything is woven out of the fabric of mind, interconnected by the fabric of mind, whether it is sacred or perceived to be foul or profane. It nevertheless comes from mind in accordance with causes and conditions. The thing about mind is it's like a mirror. It doesn't pick and choose what is projected on it. It allows it in accordance with causes and conditions. Once we know how mind works, then it makes it easier for us to practice. But if we practice without knowing right view, I don't care how long you're going to sit. I don't care how many sutras you've read. I don't care, where you think you are. You're never going to get it. You have to understand how mind works. It's something that's very, very simple. It's like so obvious. Like, let's say you wanted to become a computer technician. And you say, I'm going to open up a business to fix computers. What's the first thing that you need to do? Anybody? The first thing you need to do if you were going to open up a business to fix computers. Come on, it's obvious. You have to know how a computer works, right? Because if you open up a shop, I fix computers, and they come to you and they go, what's wrong with my computer? I don't know, it just makes this noise, and this blue screen. Well, can't you fix it? I don't know how the computer works. You're not much of a computer specialist, are you? So then I ask you, especially some of you that have been sitting on your cushions for years, what the heck are you doing on your cushion? Do you know how mine works? If you don't know how mine works, are you sitting there like the ancients said, like some old hen trying to hatch a wooden egg? Or cold stone or a stone in cold water, just sitting there? This is not the way we sit. When you listen to a well-known advisor and they tell you that the object of Chan is to understand and contemplate how mind works. So when you begin to practice in the right way and you understand how the mind works, you have a chance. You're at least in the game. If not, you're just there, again, the ancients would say, you're just like a wooden decoy, a duck decoy, just sitting there. Nothing's happening. And then you get up and you might yawn and say, that was a good nap, or that was good. I didn't think about things too much, or they came up and I couldn't stop them, because you don't know how mind works. You don't know what's there. And in the parlance of computer programming, and we look at what's wrong with the computer, what's wrong with this, and we realize, oh my goodness, I'm the virus. I'm the one that makes this computer not work right, because I make it believe that everything should run through me. And then I make a mess of it. Through body, speech, and mind, I make the wrong decisions. What I needed was wisdom of how life works. Yes, you can have a donut, but don't eat a dozen at one time. That's pretty common sense, right? But how many times have we eaten a dozen donuts when we should have only had one? And by now, I hope you know I'm not just referring to donuts. I'll just have one more for the road. And we make mistakes like that all the time. Some of you are young, and I hope you don't make the mistakes that some people in here have made, including myself. No. Because you're sitting and listening and making wise choices, you make less mistakes. That's the way that the computer works. That's the way everything runs. Don't mess it up. This is the wonderful part of the practice of Chan. We don't cut off our heads and then go around looking for our heads. That's how one master equated practicing in the wrong way. Your mind is perfectly in its place right now. This mind is where it should be, present in this moment. If it begins to go off somewhere else, then it's wrong. It should be with the body. That's simple. Okay. So when we practice to meditate, one check is the body and the mind together. The body's here, but the mind is, well, it won't work here at the beach, because here at the beach you'll be freezing. But in California it works, so I'm gonna have to find something else for you to some diversion here. Chicago Bears, no, I don't think they're They're doing very well, are they? So in any case, you're somewhere else. They need to come together. So rule one in life is always have the body and the mind together. Simple. It's very, very simple. If you do that, you're not there at work looking at a picture of a Hawaiian vacation the whole time and just looking at it and wishing that you were there. Or whatever it is that you have. No, your body and mind together, when your body and mind are together, whatever you do, you do it. Before I came in here, I had some time that I had, so I just started studying. And then the next moment, like a snap of the finger, it's time for me to come here to sit before you. Mind is like that. It didn't mean that, where did that time go? It's just the mind was occupied on that moment, in that present moment, and studying. And it was well oriented as to time and space. I'm an attorney by trade, and that's how we check to see if people have capacity, whether they're well oriented as to time and space. You know, if I ask an old person who's the president and they say Ronald Reagan, then that's a problem. Okay. If they say Trump, then I'd say, well, that's not their problem. You know, they denied he got voted out of office. Sorry, but end of political stuff. But the thing is that people have to know where they're at as to time and space. We're constantly, like some kind of mystics, astrally projecting ourselves somewhere other than where we should be. Sometimes we go to the past. Sometimes we go to the future, or we go to somewhere else at this very same time. I wonder what, you know, my family's doing. I wonder whether I left the kitchen stove on, or I left the garage door open, or whatever it is. All these things that will divert you from being with your body at this time. You need to be here. Okay, wherever you're at, you need to be there. If you're driving, of course, you should be in your car and driving carefully. It is just in this way. So Chan is really practical because it tells you, okay, you have to be here. And the other thing it does is it bestows upon you what you already have. And that's mind. It doesn't say that you need to go and look for your mind. It says, in just this moment, this very mind that you're using is the Buddha mind. You already have it. Wow. That's pretty good, right? You have the Buddha mind right now. And you'd go, oh, thank you for giving me, I'd give you anything. You just awoken to the fact that this very mind that you're using right now is not other than the Buddha mind. Now, here's the thing. In the practice of Chan, it's like going to Las Vegas. I don't know where you guys go. Maybe Chicago has its gaming places. Going to a gaming place and you start with a big stack of chips. And then every time you veer off of your cushion, you lose a chip. And then you go again. Every time you have some kind of a discriminating thought, you lose a chip, till finally it's gone. You lost your mind. Now you're in the illusion. But here's the good thing. When you remember, stay with the method, you come back and the stack of chips comes right back up again. It's yours to lose again. You didn't lose it, really. You just misplaced it. Okay? You just forgot how to use it. And because of habitual patterns and causes and conditions and lifetime after lifetime of believing that you're a life and being and just rebooting to a new lifetime and then doing this, you've forgotten your true nature. You forgot this wonderful luminosity of your mind. And you exchanged it. You exchanged it for suffering. You made that choice. You made the choice that you're going to suffer. And the bad thing about it is people who suffer want other people to suffer with them, right? Have you ever had a friend that's so down and they just want to unload on you all the troubles that they have? Blah, 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 blah. Misery loves company. Or because of their suffering, they want you to directly suffer by harming you. This is wrong. Yet we keep repeating these patterns in our life because we don't know how mind works. We don't identify the virus. The virus is not the mind. The virus is clinging to the idea of an ego or personality or a life and being. That ego, personality, or life and being that appears to be there is not there. It is what drives you to make wrong decisions moment to moment. You cannot literally drive in your life. If you set your mind to driving on the road, like the way you think, you'd be all over the road, going backwards, forwards, fast, slow, braking, all sorts of stuff, banging into cars because they looked at you or whatever they did. But yet we accept that as the norm. We accept that as the way that we believe that we are. This is very sad because we don't know the truth. We don't know the truth that this very mind is the Buddha mind. And when we understand this, then when we get on a cushion, we know what we're doing. All we're doing is just trying to stabilize and keep the mind in one spot and not being either bedazzled or vexed by thoughts coming up. Thought coming up, I want this. I don't want this. What am I going to do with that? I should have said that to that person. All these things coming up. They're coming up naturally in mind. Why? Because you put them there. They're coming up naturally. And what do we think we want to do when we sit on a cushion? What people think. It's so stupid. Pardon me, but it is. I want my thoughts to go away. Please, you don't know how mind works. You can't do that. You can't just say, I'm going to stop my thoughts. Because that's like saying, I don't want to see the steam coming out of a steam kettle that's on the burner. Sooner or later, it's going to blow. Or if you're holding your thumb on the nozzle, it's going to burn. Because naturally, that pressure has to be released. So if we sit on a cushion and we want to quiet our mind is naturally quiet. All we have to do is understand that when we sit. When we sit, we understand this mind is quiet. Already, as we are, it's quiet. We don't have to do anything to do that. But if we run around in our mind trying to put out this fire and that thought and chasing after them and going around going like a labyrinth, quiet, you just become annoyed. You become impatient because you don't know how to meditate. Even if you've been meditating for a long time, if you meditate in this way, truly it's a waste. Well, it's not really a waste because at least you learn that you can keep your legs crossed for 40 minutes, even if you're in extreme pain. But in terms of progress, when we practice in what's called the shortcut. Like who wants to know the shortcut to the practice? No. Or would you go, all right, how far is it over there? Well, you have to go like 1,000 miles that way and then 800 miles that way, and then you make a left and you go there. So it's about 2,500 miles, or longer. And you go, well, that's a long way. Or you can take the shortcut. Well, how long is that? Well, that's like 50 miles. No, I prefer to take the long way around. But that's what we do. But that doesn't make any sense. The shortcut is to know that this mind is the Buddha mind. Don't think this mind is like you create the image that you are a Buddha and sitting somewhere with a golden robe and everything, and there's lights going all over you like that, okay? The Buddha mind just represents your intrinsic nature that everyone has. So it wasn't like Shakyamuni Buddha from 2,500 years ago came down and said, hey, you need to pray to me and adore me and to do these things. And I'm the only Buddha. What purpose would that serve for him to do that? You go, okay, he came and he went, and the world's still a mess. But the appearance of Shakyamuni Buddha was here to let us know that we all have this nature within us. It's called Buddha, this enlightened nature, but in fact, there's nothing to enlighten to. It is just simply your intrinsic nature. Even if you walk out of here and vow never to sit on a cushion again, you have not lost that nature. You still take it with you because you never lost it in the first place. You sort of just misplaced it. Okay. The other day, I was looking for my keys and somebody told me, oh, you lost your keys? And I went, no, I didn't lose them. I just misplaced them. So I didn't give up looking for it. And eventually I found my keys because I didn't lose them. And so it is in the same way in when we practice. But the good thing is that every time we practice and we sit, if we lose our method, we can come back to it and we try again. We reset the game. And here's the thing. So every time when you sit to meditate, you have the Buddha mind already with you. You have this mind. Whenever I was talking to, and the person said, well, when I begin to meditate, I have to take time to get myself into the meditating mood and to crank everything up and flip all the switches and everything in order to meditate and to develop the concentration. I said, why do you do that? I say, doing that, you create a duality of that which has to be arrived at and that has not yet arrived there. And so you're already starting in the hole because it's like something you have to get to. It's better when you come to the cushion and you sit. This is the Buddha mind. Get to it. It's yours to lose at that moment. So you have all the switches all turned on. Everything's good to go. The system is ready to go. You begin to understand the elements that should be present. And as you're there approaching the cushion, you're already in a quieted mode. You don't sit there, and this is like what a lot of people do, is they take 5 or 10 minutes to try to get themselves into a meditative state. Because they think they need 5 or 10 minutes to get into the meditative state. You could get into a meditative state in a snap of fingers. It doesn't take you long to be there. Don't start thinking that this meditative state is something that you acquire. You don't acquire it, you bring it to the cushion. But the problem is when you come to the cushion, you come to the cushion with all these vexations and discriminations and false thinking. And as a result, you can't use it right out of the box, but you right out of the box, you got it. When you were born in this lifetime, along in that box, the basic operating program was mine. That was there. It was already in there. It has to be there because everything here is a projection. It has to be projected on somewhere. Not only does it have to be projected on something, but it has to be created by something. So the mind is not just a screen in which there's things that are projected, but it is the things that creates the images that go onto there. So if things can be created that are profane, it too can create those things that are wholesome, that are beneficial, that are loving. We just have to dial that in. We know it'll work because that's the way mind works. It's very, very simple. But we don't see that. We don't see how mind works. That's what I teach is called mind work. Because I start from the opposite end. A lot of people start from the idea that they want to have this, try to clean their act up. And if they do this and this and this and this and this and this, they will see their mind. But they already have it. There's nothing else to see. What do you want to see? No. Some people are looking for that extra special experience that like as if they had won the lotto or whatever. You already have won the lotto. You won. You have it right now. And the good thing about it is you can never lose it. You can misplace it, but you're not going to lose it. You just have to try to remember. We talk about awakening. Awakening is remembering mind. Remembering, you remember how mind was. It was so pleasant. It's everything so equal. No, I don't remember that. I just remember suffering. I remember coming out of the womb crying, I want air, I want air. And then after that, what? I want warmth, I want warmth. And then I want milk. And you just crying. You came in here crying and screaming. But nevertheless, you brought your mind with you. You just forgot it the moment you came out. It wasn't really a pleasant experience. Maybe the parents are going, oh, look at the child coming up. The baby's looking, what the heck is that? No. Who slapped me? No. And that's how we start coming out. There's what's called the Tathagata Garba, fancy Sanskrit word, about sometimes referred to as Rulai in Chinese. So this term is the Buddha womb. This is where this body really came from. One of my Dharma brothers, Bo Xing Pashe, he's always asking people, who is your mother? You know, so it all goes around to everybody. Who's your mother? Who is your mother? You don't really know who your mother is. And because he's trying to show from where you came from, this body, you know, we believe it came from the womb, but we don't understand how. Master Shen Yang used to say that scientists can tell you that how you were born to your parents. And you look and think that's pretty obvious, you know, how we were born. But they cannot tell you why you were born to your parents. It's very interesting. So because we don't understand mind, we don't understand the connections that are there. What I'm doing is preconditioning you to accept the Dharma that I will teach you later. but some of you are beginners, some of you have been practicing, some of you, this is a refresher course. Some of you don't need the refresher course, but those who don't need it will listen because it can't hurt. And some of you would think that they don't need a refresher course, you better listen. So the thing is that in this weekend, it's a very short period of time for me to present to you the Dharma in a way that's meaningful to you, in a way that may change the course of your life and change the course of the life of the people around you, and for you to create a beautiful environment around you. So when we practice, what we do is we try to create this loving environment that surrounds us. And we invite people into that environment. They trust us. They have faith. So they will come to you. They will say, you know, I have this problem. Can you help me with this? Can this, or whatever it is, because they trust you. You create this trust there. They have faith in what you say. And isn't that a lot better than hanging a sign on your door saying, you know, enter at your own peril? You know, as soon as you get into next to the person, you know, and they're already giving you a dirty look. So you don't want to really get close to them, be repulsed by it. But imagine you can do this, and you can. You can create this little mini Pure Land around you that lets people in, that has a sign there saying, I care. I care. Not bad, right? So even if I was completely wrong about the origin of mind and everything else, what harm could I do to people around me when I'm telling them to have this loving kindness towards each other, to understand and have pity and patience for people that are in a worse position than them, especially worse position in not being able to understand mind. This is something that is important for us. And these are what we call the prerequisites of Chan. To practice Chan, we have to know what we're doing on the cushions. And if we just come with this kind of an attitude that, you know, I've already practiced for so many years, what can this old man teach me? Then it's quite a pity. I learn every single day, every single moment, even when I was studying right now, I'm learning and picking up more and more. You know what I learned? There's a lot more to learning than I can ever learn in this lifetime. It's just amazing. It's like every time I run into new sutras, new treatises, it would take me a lifetime just to say the names of all these sutras. I'm going, this is a new one. This is a new one. I need to go back to this one. And so, but the thing is that we're a practitioner. We have the attitude, a beginning attitude or beginner's mind. I learned that from Suzuki. That was probably the first thing I learned from Suzuki was have a beginner's mind. And it's never failed me. Every time you sit on the cushion to meditate, have a beginner's mind. There's a lot of people who practice for a long time, and they have what I call old dog Chan. Old dog Chan is like a dog that's on a warm spring day that's just lying in the grass, just out there warming their body, just lying there. You know, when they go Bowser and they time to eat, then they get up and go to eat, and then they go back out to lie in the sun. A lot of people sit like that after they've had 10, 20 years of experience. And it's hard to get them to move again. You know, you have to get them to give them different dog food so they can lose weight and get them to move around, roll a ball, you know, to make them interested again, because they're just sitting there and they're good. at just sitting, but they've just turned off all the lights. They're really not making any progress in their practice. And so you have to get them off of that, kick them off of that, because it's too comfortable. They've learned, if I sit and I don't pay attention to my legs, then they won't hurt me. The more you pay attention to your legs, the more your legs are, you're going to fear crossing them, because you're going to go, oh, this is not good. You know, this is really bad. But that comes with time and experience. But once you learn that, and then you get into this sedentary Chan, it's not good. Always be a beginner. You never think that you've got it. You just simply sit. And the wonderment of the mind is incredible. What the mind shows you. It shows you in little bits and pieces. It doesn't always just open up and say, well, here it is, you know, you got the big prize and I'm going to show you every single thing about mine. It isn't in that way. It first just reveals that this is a dream. And it may be there, and it's kind of like you at a circus, just getting a peek inside to see what the show is. And then closes up right away. But you know that that show is different than the outside. So that gives you faith to practice. When we understand how to practice, we understand that all we're doing is just stabilizing the mind. Not the self, not the ego. The ego then is seen as a projection, along with any other projections that come up in the mind. It is not that which is meditating. When you meditate, you do not use your consciousness or your thinking to meditate. Do not do that. This mind, this very mind that you have now, don't think my mind, just think mine. Let that meditate. So when you meditate, it's clear. And you just let that. And it's not that as if you were looking at subject and object. Subject and object is duality. One of the principles of Chan and Buddhism is there's no duality. So how is that? There's no duality. We have the idea of that there's no agent. There's no one that is meditating there. So what it is, it's just mind in a settled state. There is no subject and object. Even if we use the method then is not truly a duality, it's a fusion with mind. We are not thinking of the method. We are contemplating the method as an appearance in mind, but it's stationary. It doesn't move around. Because it doesn't move around, then we can just rest on that method. If you're doing sign illumination, you rest in the awareness of the environment. If you're watching the breath, then you rest on watching the breath, or counting the breath, or reciting the Buddha's name, or using a Huatou. But we are not thinking of it. When we think of a Huatou, we've ruined it. We're creating a duality that drives a wedge between mind and the truth, the fusion that all of these appearances, including the idea that you have a consciousness, are, when all is dropped off, they fuse, what's called absorption or self-absorption, and it is absorbed into mind. So whether you're an advanced practitioner or a novice, these words should help direct you in the proper way to meditate. You just keep your mind stable, keep it rested. If we think, I cannot rest my mind, in that moment, we cannot do it because we're creating that in our mind. What are you doing? You're creating a failure. You're programming your mind. Remember, I said causes and conditions never fail. But if you say, I have faith in this teacher, I have faith in the method, I have faith in mine, and I have faith in myself, and it will work. Even though yourself may be an illusion, we still use it. It helps us park this mind, and then we park the mind. The mind wants to do that because it's naturally at rest anyway. We think we're rushing around from here to there. All of this is like a dream, but we believe it to be real. We forgot what it's like to be awakened. Wouldn't you like to know that? To like be awakened? The one ancient, it might have been Han Shan, that talked about taking the sword of wisdom and slicing or a tear in the sky. Imagine that. That is awakening. Just taking this Vajra diamond sword and just cutting a slice through the sky. How is that? But that's it. That's how it works. It's very, very amazing. It's inconceivable. And yet mind, if you imagine that, your mind will be there. It's not going to be looking up at the sky. It's going to be on the other side looking through. Now you're doing Chan. See the difference? It's a difference in perspective. We don't have the perspective of duality of someone that is a personality, a life and being, or an ego. It is mind. It's the perception of mind. Perception of mind is totally different than the perception of a human being. The mind can use the perception of a human being, but it uses all perception. If it was to look at you, it would be looking at you, and also you looking at me, and them looking at you and me looking at each other. Pretty cool, huh? It's that way. That's mine. It is the way it is in any moment. We just can't do that because we can't conceive of it. It's unconditioned. It isn't something that has brought up. It is just the way it works. Now, what I've talked to you about is way beyond beginners. But I don't think there's a person in this room that isn't capable of listening or putting into practice what I've just talked about. It is just in this way. You just have to have faith in this mind, and faith that you can do that. And you can do it. It will work. You just keep the mind just stable, and it will work. Remember, there's no agent there. Agent meaning somebody that is doing anything. Everything returns to the one, but the one returns to mind. It's beyond any conception. With this, now you are ready to learn how to meditate, because you have a foundation on how to practice. This is important. So when we meditate, the first thing we do, very easy, because we're already doing it now. Have an awareness of where you're at. Have an awareness. The first check is, are you awake? Yes. Are you in Chicago? Yes. Are you in a Chan hall? Yes. No. Is it nighttime? Yes, you're aware. You're aware of people around you. You're aware of your surroundings. And then you are aware of it in this present moment. So in this present moment, what is happening? In the present moment, the mind does not drag what occurred just a moment ago into the present. Doesn't try to hold on to it or anticipate the future. It's perfectly content to be in this present moment. Relax. We relax the body. Just in this present moment. Any tension in the body just withers away, drops on. The tongue is lightly touching the roof of the mouth by the teeth. The jaws relaxed. Your eyes are relaxed. Your shoulders and neck are relaxed. Arms and fingers. Your chest is relaxed and your upper back is relaxed. All the tension's falling off of the muscles. Just like tripping off of them. Your breathing is relaxed and your heart's relaxed. Your liver, spleen, gallbladder, stomach, all relaxed. Your intestines, small and large, relaxed. Your lower back is relaxed. Your hips are relaxed. And your legs, your ankles and feet. Your whole body is relaxed and your mind is relaxed. And it picks up the method. If you don't have a method, just count your breath to 10 and then return again to count from 1 again. Counting on the exhale. Wow. Don't try to control your breath. Let it breathe naturally. 2. Your awareness is in all directions. If thoughts arise in the mind, let them go by as if they were clouds. Don't hold on to them. In your awareness, you are aware when they've arisen. But pay no particular attention to them. Just contemplate your method. If you're watching your breath, contemplate the breath. Do not think. This is a good breath or a bad breath. Just use your awareness to be aware of where you're at in your breath. At the beginning, at the end of an inhale, beginning of an exhale, and the end of the exhale. Just relax. It's as if you were walking in a circle. There's no place to go, no place to be. Just the mind being, not as an entity, but as mind. The truth. Do not conjure up any images. Do not follow images. Just relax. just this moment. Do not engage in thought. Your contemplation must be continuous, like one thought for 1,000 years. You can do this. The first key is to relax the body and the mind. You have awareness all around you. This is your true nature. The mind is fused with everything. Everything comes from mind. Not even the one. It's just this way. Relax. Stay in the present moment. Do not follow thought. The Buddha is in the present moment. This mind. You're using it now. See how simple it is. Just the Buddha mind. Relax. Do not follow thought, sensations, or impressions. Don't move yet. slowly begin to come out of your meditation. Don't lose this feeling. This feeling is the way you should be all the time. Peaceful. You could still laugh. You could still cry. But inside is not stirred by the emotions, not the tranquility from within is not destroyed by the vexations of this life and the illusions. The world does not disappear. Only one's vexations disappear. One's discrimination, one's suffering. You're relaxed. This is the way you should be. All the time. You can engage with people and talk, or even talk to a group, or talk one-on-one. But the mind is very still, very calm. Easy. We, as an ego, mess it up. We disturb this tranquility. But you see, you've never lost it. It's here, right now, right with you in this moment. You see how easy it is to pick it back up again. The moment you begin to stir and suffer, you believe you lost it, but you didn't. You just have to practice bringing it back and bringing it back until it stabilizes. So many people teach about how you can arrive at this mind, but this mind has never left you. You see, you have it now. At peace, liberation is right there. I think one Theravada wrote, liberation at the palm of your hand. It's just right here, right in your palm. Does anyone have any questions about what I talked about? You can ask your questions now. Yes. You have to speak loud because so people can hear you.
I have a question about the mind that you were talking about. I wonder if it's I have the visualization of entering the it's almost like the mind is the layer above us all, and through meditation would enter into the same layer and find the connections that are always present there. Would you say this picture is accurate?
I think your picture creates an idea of duality that's not present, but it is something because you're coming from samsara, you're interpreting it in a manner which can be interpreted in samsara because mind itself is inconceivable, but it's not bad in terms of what you're doing because from your practice and study, this is how you're interpreting it. I've been talking lately and saying, probably some of you hear me all the time, probably go, oh, he's going to say that again. But what I say is that we don't build a stairway to heaven. Okay. And for those who've heard me say this, this is exactly why I'm saying this, is that his conceptions of getting to this higher state or to mind is like a stairway to heaven where we practice. the six paramitas, the five precepts, the 37 factors of enlightenment, the eightfold path. And then we try to comport our actions to something so that we can get to the state. But I follow Huineng, that type of a way is from East Mountain, also tradition from the 7th century, and from Shenshu. And Huineng was also from the same patriarch Hongren, and he used a sudden illumination, or what's called subitism. There's a fancy word for you. So if you ever talk to people, no, it's subitism. So subitism is just sudden enlightenment, or this. In this moment, when you got to the state, it's sudden. It's there. You didn't have to manufacture it or go through a whole process to get there, or climb stairs to get there. It's there because it's naturally there. So when you get to that point, do not think of conceptualization or because the feeling is there, but then what happens is that the self comes in to try to reclaim its territory. Like a dog urinating on a fire hydrant, marking its territories. Hate to put it in that vulgar way, but that's what's happened. Is it's marking its territory and saying, yeah, you did a fine job there, Sparky. But it isn't in that way. I really want to point this out to you, because people will have these kinds of things, but you have a very good condition to practice. Okay. And so with this good condition to practice, I want to make these little tiny adjustments to how you look at things. So I'm very glad that you asked this question, because in doing this, it's just there. There's no place to arrive at. The moment that you started becoming aware and relaxing, you're there. There's nothing more to add to it, nothing to reach for or to grasp or to get to. All we're doing is uncovering the obscurations that are there. And the most important one is your sense of self. And when the sense of self drops off, then the mind can see clearly. Once that happened, then your sense of self has a natural antiviral program in it. Which is to try to come back and go, and the only way it can come back is by doing and saying, yeah, you're doing this great job, and so then you go, you can say that again, you're doing a great job. And so it tricks you, and it takes away that luminosity, but you think that you're still in that state, but you're not. What you've done now is replaced it by this kind of a clear cellophane that's there, where the self is now superimposed into the environment of the mind. You can't see that. It's tricked you. But it's not bad. As long as when that happens, you drop that off. Okay. You just drop it off. But it's fine because you got there, and then the self comes seeping back in. It's natural. It's natural that will happen. But now you know. Okay, that's the difference. Now you know. That's what a well-known advisor does for you. I'm so happy that you asked that question. Any other questions? They could be basic questions. It doesn't matter. Yes.
It's inconceivable, but
I'm sorry?
I'm struggling to understand how to conceive of something inconceivable, like to sit in meditation and to be sort of, I guess, conceiving the unconceivable, but also am I still aware of my sensations, but also not? And
no, because you won't be there. So if you're still there and you're aware of sensations, the self is still present. There's still, we talk about subtle wisdom, and the subtle wisdom is ferreting out those vestiges of self. Initially, self will come up as gross sensations. My legs hurt, or I'm hungry, or I'm cold, or whatever it is. I can't do it, whatever it is that comes up. Those are gross sensations, so they're obvious ones that come up. After a while, when you sit to meditate, they turn into the ones that he had, where they're very subtle, like extremely subtle, but they're still driven by the self. So we have to let those go. As we let those go, then the mind becomes clearer and quieter. That's inconceivable for us to do that. Don't expect that you get there and all of a sudden, it's like a slot machine paying off, and the lights are blinking and coins are falling out and whatever. It isn't in that way. It's very subtle, very subtle. And as we practice, what I don't want you to do is like wait for the payoff. That's like the worst thing that you can do. And I began to get realizations when I abandoned those notions. Before I was like trying to squeeze it out, like I'll say anything. He knows me. But I mean, it's like you're trying to poop a corn cob or something, some dry corn cob, and you're just trying to get there, but you can't do it. It doesn't work that way. It's the opposite. Some of you picked this up right away. It's just backing off of all of those things, backing off of any self-impressions, and just relaxing and being content of having the mind be aware without doing anything else but sitting. This is difficult for us because we've learned we have to do things. I think in 100 years, they're going to teach Chan like this. Because the kids won't know what to do with their fingers anymore. They want to be hitting those little buttons. So I'm again with you fine-tuning so that when you meditate, how to do it. It is sometimes I use the term because I don't even know kids know what a rake is. No, you ever used a rake? Oh, okay. Your parents sent you out to rake the leaves or whatever, but it's a rake. But when we do it in the wrong way, we're using the other side. And when we practice in a way that we want to get something, we're using the other side. When we turn it around, they say to turn the mind's eye inward. This term means to use the perception of mind to see things, not the perception coming from the ego. The perception of mind is inconceivable, as like I said to her, is just this ability to know not only what she is thinking and communicate, and her seeing me through her eyes towards me, but me seeing all of you and you seeing me and knowing what that looks like. That's inconceivable. The self cannot do that. The fuse will blow. It's not capable of handling that kind of information, but mind is. Mind is capable of that, and knowing the thoughts of everyone on earth that's ever been or will be. That's inconceivable. It is in this way. Let me play a game with you. Tonight is kind of a night we're doing an introduction of mind anyway. So there's one sutra that says that the 50 billion Buddha worlds can fit on a single strand of hair of the Buddha. 50 billion Buddha worlds. And you go, well, that's inconceivable. That's why I'm saying it. Because it's inconceivable. Us as sentient beings cannot conceive of something like that happening. And they say not only can they fit, but without protrusion, meaning like if you're gonna look at that little single strand of hair, it's not gonna look like a pregnant hair. It's just gonna look like a natural hair. 50 billion, how can that be? Let's try something, okay? See if this works. Close your eyes. And imagine this wooden bowl, just a regular wooden bowl, like a begging bowl or something from a monk from old times, a wooden bowl. Put that in your mind. And then picture right in the center of that bowl, a walnut. Try to see the bowl and then the walnut in the bowl. And then that walnut begins to change to an American buffalo. It has the same shape, but now it's changed into a buffalo in the bowl. Try to picture them. And now it's morphing again into this giant mountain in the bowl. Try to picture the mountain in the bowl. Okay, you can open your eyes. Was there anybody that couldn't see that? Maybe you couldn't see it? Okay. So most of you saw it. That's mind. Mind is capable of doing that. Yourself cannot do that. To yourself, that's inconceivable. If you allowed yourself to do it, say, well, no, wait, let me stop. The walnut can fit in the bowl, but the buffalo can't fit in the bowl, much less a mountain. But yet you did that. You put the 50 billion Buddha worlds on a single strand of hair. We can't conceive of that with our samsaric existence with ourselves. But the Buddha mind can. The Buddha mind can see things. Sometimes I talk about the world and this fusion between the past, present, and future. And it's interesting. We always point to my resident quantum physicist over here or mechanics person and saying that the past, present, and future, they're all together. That's why they say to know all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, perceive that all phenomena is created by the mind. But quantum mechanics stole that from Buddhists. And it's like you see a cosmic taco. So the world is like this cosmic taco that the future and the past fold over. And all times are contained within there. We cannot conceive of it from our regular mind. Only the weird physicists or quantum people can do that kind of stuff. But it's interesting because then we see that the past, present, and future, they're not different. They're not, we don't see it in this way because we only here, we measure things. And I was talking to Michael and Alan, and Alan was picking up and going, yeah, there's linear and then there's just non-linear in terms of looking at things. And when we don't have a measuring point to measure something, all of that stuff can be manifested in a moment, but not with the samsaric mind. Because the samsaric mind, it goes like the Indian, well, many moons ago, I was born, you know, and it's because you have to measure it from something. So how many moons old are you? Because that's the way we count, right? We don't do it in the ancient way. Well, let me count how many phases of the moon, but I give you a hint, like whatever your age is, go times 12 and you'll figure out how old you are in moons. But nevertheless, it's a measurement point. But in mind is all of that. Mind created the moon. So you know, how long did it create a moon ago? Who knows? So one master was asked, he goes, the young monk said, Shifu, like master, how old are you? And he says, I'm as old as the Buddha. And then the young monk said, well, then how old is the Buddha? He said, he's as old as me. And that's the way things are. It's just this way that we don't count it in time because it's all relative. But mind is not relative. Mind creates the relative. So all this tonight, what I've been doing is trying to give you something to food for not thought, but food for contemplation. So just allowing you to contemplate, see things from a different viewpoint. This viewpoint is right view. Any other questions? Somebody had another question back there before. All right, he came up.
Someone once said that when practicing mindfulness, if time stands still, that's the wrong way to do it. Is that correct?
It isn't. Time becomes seen as relative to other illusory objects. And so if they're saying that that's not the right way to do it, where time stands still, it is that mind creates the time, but mind is cognizant of that. Mind has a knowing that it isn't dualistic in its way. And so those terms actually become very relevant. But there's even, you know, I remember one story of this one master that was practicing, and then he went outside because he needed to urinate. And as he was urinating, and it was a moonlit night, he saw the individual droplets of his urine coming out, like as if they were still. Because his mind was so clear, then the time became irrelevant, and his mind was processing information much faster than what we appeared to be an actual reality. So for instance, if you were going to make a slow motion movie, you would have to speed up the frames to make it look slow. And that's with the mind speeds up so fast that oftentimes you're waiting for apparent reality to catch up to where you know it's going. And so the time becomes irrelevant. So it's not quite that way. You know, it depends on whether we're defining it from samsara or from mind. No, and looking at it from samsara, you know, who knows? But your question's a good question, because what it's doing is beginning to contemplate this stuff, which is good. It's starting to percolate through. So good question. Yes.
Based on how you've been describing mind, I'm kind of conceiving it in some ways as like an upper, like capital M mind and lowercase mind, of like here's more universal mind versus like my own individual mind. Is that, I mean, obviously we don't want dualities or dichotomies necessarily, but is there something larger outside of my own mind that we're kind of trying to tap into?
Again, these are the questions that should be asked and starting to percolate up to the top. We do not confuse mind, let's say capital M mind, because a lot of times when I do my writing, I capitalize the M with consciousness. And consciousness is something that arises in mind. We have a saying that sages return consciousness to mind. Fools turn mind into consciousness. And what that means is that we see it from the right view. So the right view is consciousness belongs to mind, but in and of itself is empty. It has no no value. It's an illusion. And it's constantly changing, so it's impermanent. So it's one of the three seals in terms of it. And so when we see things in this way, we're clear about that consciousness appears in mind. And so, as I'd mentioned before, there's no agent that does things. There's now I'll take you really, really deep into the Dharmata Vibhaga, which is distinguishing phenomena from its intrinsic nature. That's the sutra. And that one talks about that if there's nothing to apprehend, because that's an illusion, then the meaning of an apprehender, an agent, as I've been mentioning, also falls, because since there's nothing to apprehend, how can you call anything an apprehender? So it's just mind. If you can get that, then you just jump from, grade school to the university. And, because this is something for you to contemplate, because you're going that way anyway. So I might as well just take you there rather than just give you little baby steps and ABCs, cross your legs and, I hope you do okay. All right. Don't fall asleep. Why should I do that? I mean, your question is one that is a good question. So all the people that have questions, I'm going to respond to them on the level that you're at, and so that's good. So don't be afraid. Even if you think you have like a silly question or dumb question, there is no such thing like that, and at least as long as you ask a Dharma question, don't ask me what my favorite color is or whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a probably basic question about combination of posture and like the experience of meditation. I often find the thoughts, like I get over focused on my body, let's put it that way, because I have a lot of injuries. And so I'm curious how you think about that. And then I also wanted to just add a brief comment, which is the time conversation from neurological issues I've had experiences where my body slows down, let's say, but my mind moves at normal speed. It's quite a wild sensation, almost like an out of body looking down at myself, and the whole world moves in slow motion. So I just think that's fascinating that as that's happening, my mind actually is operating on a different realm. Maybe it goes into big mind, I don't know, but question and comment. So thank you.
As to your body, which you get to my age. I got one here, I got one here, and here, and here, and here. You just, Master Shen Yang used to say, and if I say Shifu, that means Master Shen Yang, my master. He said, you give your body to the cushion and your mind to the method. So when you sit down, you just give your body to the cushion. You don't think about it. Me sitting here for almost an hour and a half, my legs are getting uncomfortable, but it's okay. And you just leave it alone if you can. If you need to straighten them out, then you straighten them out. It's all right. You just leave that. You don't have to baby your body. Don't over mother your body. And maybe over father your body if you have a father that doesn't mother. This day and age, I have to be politically correct about everything. So in any case, the other thing, those are all just experiences. Let them go. Let them go. Just don't be trying to race to get something or to slow things down or to speed things up or whatever. For you, you're better just to stabilize the method. Don't chase after experiences or be concerned if the experiences appear. You just let them go. let everything go, every mental impression. If it moves, it's conditioned. Condition means that it is an illusory appearance. So whatever moves, let it go. So when we're sitting there and meditating and all these thoughts arise from different things, let them go by like clouds. You don't pay attention. The only thing that stays there is your method. You want to keep your method right there. And you are not thinking of the method, you're just looking at the method, contemplating. And it's mind that's contemplating, just mind. And you'll become adept at that, where you're able to look at the method from mind, rather than look at it from this thinking, I need to hold this method, I need to hold it, I'm holding the method. Oh, this is so fantastic. Wow, wait till I tell Gilbert about this, I'm seeing colors. No, we don't do that. What we do is we just keep it there. You pull the self then, let's say that this is the self and you're the method. And so you pull away from the self. Now you see the self here as a reflection on the mirror mind, just like you, the method, you're both being reflected. The problem is that when the self is there, it opaques the mind, it obstructs it. So I can't really see the method very good because the self's in the way. Where is the method? Because the self's there. And so when we don't do that, then it's clear the method's here. And then eventually the method will just disappear. The natural luminosity of the mind will appear. And I don't want to say, oh, it's like the brightest 10 billion suns or whatever. Don't have any conception about luminosity in that way. It is just the ability of the mind to be able to see through things and see things as they are. So as I see you, I just see Buddhas. And I see these bodies like transparent fishes in an ocean. It's just that way. Doesn't mean that you just turned into a fish, but to me, I see you in this way as part of the whole mind and your projections on mind. So I know exactly from where you come from. It is said that the mind knows you, but you cannot know the mind. It is in this way because you cannot know mind because it's inconceivable. But you nevertheless can use the mind and practice it. And little by little, the mind yields up its secrets. We talk about the esoteric, and it yields up its secrets, but it's not in a way that's conceivable. So you can't make it up. And what happens is when people make it up and then they go to a master and want confirmation, it doesn't work. There was one person that went in front of Master Shen Yang, and he went to him and said, Shifu, I want you to know that I'm enlightened. And he says, really? And he says, yes. And so he started asking him, is it light? Is it heavy? Does it feel this way? Do you have a light here or whatever? And then the boy went, Shifu, all these questions you asked me, it's like you don't believe that I'm enlightened. And he says, well, enlightened people don't act like you. And that's the thing. So just bear that in mind when you go to try to pass the test, It's not as easy as going to the DMV and passing the test. So hopefully nobody's ever flunked the DMV test. But in any case, it's something because you get fooled. You think that you're that way. And I've seen people like that, and they walk around playing like they're enlightened. Oh, it's painful because they shy away from you. They go, oh, you should ask Gilbert about that. And they'll shy away. They don't want to be tested, and you can tell they don't, the way they act. But you shouldn't worry about that. You should never think, oh, am I enlightened or am I not enlightened or whatever, There are places that you could get that kind of enlightenment, you go to some places and, You pay them $10,000 and they'll confirm you're enlightened to the tune of $10,000. So, but anyway, don't do that. You know, the whole thing is that we don't try to attain anything. We just try to maintain mind. So we maintain a state of unawakened, not even a state, we maintain an awakened mind. We don't fall into a mental state. So when we fall into a mental state, then we start seeing all these things that you're talking about, or this ceiling up there where you're headed to. Those are mental states. They're not really a genuine experience, but they're not necessarily bad because there are things along the way. You don't stop there. That there are things that you will experience, but you have to be very sincere and honest and truthful. And then so you say, okay, is it moving? If it's moving, it's an illusion. Okay. Is your mind moving? Did I think about it? That's an illusion. Where the heck did he come in? I thought he put him back down there when I started to meditate, but he seeped back in. So you become very observant. This is what's called illumination of the mind. The master said that it is not the crime that thoughts arise in the mind. The crime is not knowing soon enough that they had arisen. So when we, oh, I'm about ready to sneeze, so, okay, so if we don't know that a thought has arisen, it takes over the mind, it kind of commandeers it, and then it messes it all up. But if we stay awake, so you just stay awake, stay awake, stay awake, be aware of this moment, and be aware that things are coming into the mind. When we see something's coming into the mind, some impression, I want to do that, or I want to get that, or maybe, you know, when I saw those colors, I was enlightened, or whatever it is, things are coming into the mind. You know, what am I going to eat after this? But that has nothing to do with here. So we just let it go. We don't have to push it out. We just have to, through the illumination of the mind, we are aware of all these projections that are on the mind. Your projections. The subtle wisdom is seeing the mental projections that are simply come up as either illusions in the mind or mental states. So mental states can come in, some desire or aversion or vexation or discrimination. Sometimes people who are angry are always looking for something to be angry about. Have you ever seen that? People just looking for something, or impatient. You know, right away they're impatient, and so they don't have to have an object of impatience, but the mind is searching for something to hang on to become impatient. Those are very subtle movements of the mind. So we begin to see those. And a lot of times we cannot see the self, but the self is something that you have the pens? Is that binary Chan over there on that board with all the zeros? Binary Chan. Ah. Yeah. Move. When you get to my age, you have to get right to your body. But let's say this is mine. I don't know if you can put some light on. So as you're meditating, you're seeing in the mind something like this. As subtle wisdom comes up, you may see something like, oh, all right, oh, there's this car. And it might be a diamond ring or whatever. It could be money. It could be a pet, you know, that you have. Make it a dog. Kind of. All right. And all of these things seem like they're rotating and moving and seeing things. Maybe over here, you know, you have your boss. Or your husband, you know, you have a money problem. Here, you know, it could be that you have to mow the lawn. Or go and get groceries or whatever, and all of these seem to be moving in a direction, kind of like a black hole, you know, in space, in a black hole, you see stars. And then there's this hole, but you see all these stars, they're moving towards something. You can't see anything here, but you see these stars moving towards the thing. And so you deduce there's something there, even though we can't see it, there's something there. Here, when thoughts come up like this, they're like constellations of vexation or constellations of desires or whatever, but you cannot see what's here, what's drawing them in. But that is the subtle wisdom to discern that those are naked desires or vexations or mental states. They are drawing these things to them. And so it's pulling them in. Little by little, these start to dissipate very lightly. But as they dissipate, that we still have the subtleness of these things, these kind of cravings that are still there in the mind. We have to discern those. The way we discern initially is when we see that things are drawn towards them. So as we begin to discern this, we'll see like a little car now, very small, kind of moving towards this spot. And then so we surmise there's something there. And we understand that it may be colorless, formless, soundless, but nevertheless, it's the subtle point of self that's still drawing things towards it. And so the subtle wisdom is to discern those. Initially, it's enough just to know that your boss shows up, the money problem, the lawn, the car, whatever. Those are gross sensations. But it's what draws those in that is the very subtle ones. Those are the ones that trick you into thinking that there was the two levels, you know, that you're heading up like a stairway to get to this level here. But it isn't in that way. You know, mind is just mind. And so when you see the mind just as mind, then when you practice, you can just settle down. Okay, let's settle down. Settle down. You don't have to do anything. You just sit. Things come up. We practice not getting them. We practice not going after the things that are there. So some things will come up, you know, and when you're sitting there, it'll start to tempt you. It may be something like this. You may think that's a snake, but it's not. It's a palm tree. And it's Hawaii calling you, you know. And there's you in a hammock, you know, drinking your pina colada. And that's going to draw you. Oh, wow, that's really good. I really like that. Or it may be your boss, you know, or whatever, somebody that, so because all of these are very strong, gross sensations. Don't go and say, you know, my teacher said you're gross. So the thing is that these then begin to go away because you spot them. You can spot them from a mile away. Okay, the mind is able to discern these a mile away. So how do you say discernment in Chinese? Here's a translator. Say in Chinese loud. Bianchi. So why don't you make Chinese here today? Okay. The bianchi. So there's a discernment in the mind. And this discernment sees these things very easily. But we have to use the subtle discernment when we get down to when all these things start to fade away. Because then we think that it's all clear. But it's not. There's still these vestiges of things that are there, of self, of these notions of self. And it may be in the reverse way. It may go up to Eon and say, you're doing a really great job. You see, there's nothing here anymore. that's really good. I think you're like at level 10 or 11 by now, whatever it is. And you go, where did that come from? Or you may enter into a blissful state. And you go, oh, this is really good. But there's still something experiencing it. The thing about mind is it's inconceivable, but even a small realization of it is unmistakable because it's not like anything that you could conceive. And that, how do I know that? Well, you won't know it because it's inconceivable. And you go, well, that doesn't even make any sense. We're not on this side of this, but you have to see it. You're like, have you ever talked to people and you go, oh, you could not believe it. You have to see it for yourself, right? And you go, oh, it's so beautiful. So you have to see it for yourself, and they go, well, let me see it. Then they see it. You're right. I couldn't believe it. It's like that, except it's not samsaric. It is something beyond it, and so when we see things in this way. We use the mind, everything is stabilized. It's as if everything disappears, but then when you come out of it, everything reboots. Just like here, it's all rebooted. You're there. The only difference is that you know in this moment what you're doing. You know what's happening, what you should be saying, what you should not be saying, and what you're doing in this room. You're well oriented as to time and space. And when I see some people, I'm going, that's a gauge for capacity, but that person's not oriented as to time and space, and that's what we think when the person has lost their mind. But a lot of people, when you meditate, you're not oriented as to, you're on the cushion, you're out over at the beach in the palm tree. And so you have to keep the mind there, but we don't keep it by force. This is very, very important. When you meditate, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. You don't muscle a method. You don't muscle meditation. What you do is you relax and relax and relax. And when we see things, if the method is here, what's actually seeing it is the knowing part of the mind that's on this side. And it's seeing this, the method is projected onto the surface of this mirror mind. Have you ever heard that, like read anything that says, oh, the mind is like a mirror or a surface of a mirror? No? You guys ever read anything about that? So they talk about many analogies of mirror mind, okay? But here's the kicker about this. This aspect is mind as well. It's the knowing part of the mind. This knowing part of the mind is not separate. These, in fact, are one and the same. But we just split it for purpose of seeing this. Actually, this whole thing knows everything in it. But if you wanted to define this, you'd have to put little marks going out this way because it's infinite. And it's infinite light. But we can't see that because there's all sorts of obscurations here. But when we see that in true way, this side is light. This side is light. This is what they call the luminosity of the mind. If the method disappears, and you imagine that this surface is a mirror. This surface is a mirror. The knowing aspect of the mind is a mirror. Facing each other, what would it be? What could be seen? Anybody? Huh?
No, I don't think a self can see itself because that self includes everything.
Is a projection. So the self, we're assuming the self goes, the method goes. All that remains is a mirror facing a mirror. Does that mean that there's nothing there? Whatever it is, it's infinite, right? An infinite reflection. But it's inconceivable. Because we're not there to see it. Have you ever been in a barber shop or somewhere where there's two mirrors and you're there and you're saying, wow, you know, I can go through. There's like 500 of me, you know, you can see that, but if you're not in the mirror, what would a mirror see facing another mirror? Just infinite light. That's your life. They project upon it because of causes and conditions. And it's like somebody comes up and you go, oh, you smudge the mirror, right? So then when you smudge the mirror, then it's reflected on the other one 1,000 times, infinite times. And this creation of the world and samsara. But that smudge doesn't interfere with the ultimate nature of the mind. It's just a smudge. When the smudge is removed, it's there. It doesn't matter whether the smudge is there or not. Mind is mind. It's just that we can't see that because after a while there's so many smudges on it, you know, that this side gets tricked into believing that person that was there meditating is actually real, but they're not real. But the mind falls into a dream state. In the same Dharmabhaga, it talks about non-conceptual wakefulness. Just kind of play with that term, non-conceptual wakefulness. When you wake, this is really the true mind in samsara. The true mind in samsara is samsara meaning anything that's appearing here. And if it's awake and it's non-conceptual, so it doesn't have an idea of seeing things in a discriminating way. It functions perfectly. It's able to communicate with you, but it doesn't say, I'm so smart, I'm so wise, or gosh, I hope they understand. I'm so worried about what they're going to say about that. It doesn't have those kinds of thoughts. It just is like a river that flows. It's non-conceptual, but it functions perfectly just as part of mind. It is in this way. So you are all capable of that. You just don't fall into the dream. No, don't go into the donut hole. Okay. If you go into the donut and you look at it, believe me, you're not going to be in non-conceptual wakefulness. You're going to be grasping for it. And then you'll know the true meaning of emptiness when it's gone. Okay. So anyway, that's it for, yes, go ahead.
Just when you draw the big circle with the mind and the appearances, and then you mentioned
Yeah.
something like their growth, right? The appearances.
Gross sensations. Yeah.
Sensations. Do you mean as in growth as in non-subtle or growth as in bad?
No, non-subtle. I was making that. You probably got tricked when I said, don't say your boss is gross to him. I didn't call your boss gross, but gross in meaning that it's something so obvious, you know. It's like if we were going to sand something, we use a very strong sandpaper first, and it's very rough. You can feel that, but then as you begin to sand it, it becomes finer and finer. It's very smooth, but you'll still see some imperfections in the wood. You know, so you have to go to a finer and finer sandpaper to remove those final ones. You don't just simply say, I'll settle for this will work. How many of you woodworker people have done that, and then you put your stain on and go, God, look at that, I still see the scratches in there. You know. Nobody does woodwork or what? All right. You're just afraid to admit it. But anyway, this thing, we just keep doing it. In that way, it's kind of like Shen Shu, you know, polishing the mirror to remove the things, but But in fact, all it is the mind being able to observe these very subtle movements, very, very like subtle flutters that are still there, that are the sense of a personality or life and being, or an ego that's moving things and distorting the mirror, or apparently distorting the mirror. But it really isn't in that way. But we have to move through all of those in order to get to this time when the mind can awaken. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. Then I think we're done for the night. And do you do your vows and stuff, or do you want to do that? We can do that then. We'll finish each night with vows. And when you do a vow, if you haven't bowed before, you just join your palms. And when you bow, you just do a slow, deep bow. And then when you come up, your forefingers just lightly touch your forehead like that. And this is just something that we do as respect. And it's also, your mind is in the bow itself, the practice. The heart is in projecting, a love. You could put it in that way, or transfer of this love, to where you want it to go. So as you bow again, you go down, and then just lightly touch your forehead. So you'll hear the bell go, and you'll hear somebody say bow, and then you bow. We do 3 bows, and then we'll do a 4th one as a respect for this group's teacher, which is Master Shen Yang, and just whatever you hear coming out of my mouth can be traced back to him, and from him traced back all the way back through. So what we're doing is we're showing appreciation for that. Okay. No frustration. No frustrations. And vows will be sufficient. Okay, join your palms. Bow. Bow. One more bow for Master Shen Yang. Now please face each other. So this right down the middle, and you guys can choose where you want to go. And then no bell, bow to each other. Good job. We'll see you tomorrow. Please fold the towels and put them on the top of your cushion. And remember to leave clockwise, please. Yeah, that's